Hello, I'm Steve Hargrave for Fred Film Radio, the festival insider. We're here at the BFI London Film Festival 2019, and we're going to inject a bit of rock and roll into the proceedings now, suitably, with Richard Lowenstein.
Worn my leather jacket if I know.
You should have had the leather jacket on.
Yes.
For the sake of the audio listeners, he's wearing a full leather outfit.
Very good.
It's very good. The director of Mystify, the Michael Hutchence documentary, that actually, obviously before the festival had had a lot of attention, inevitably as anything related to Michael did. But I guess we'll take you back to that idea of, you knew Michael, you worked with him, you directed some of their videos. Why now? Why this documentary?
Well, I waited 20 years for something good to come along, and I couldn't actually find anything. I mean, there was a drama miniseries, there was some other normal sort of TV documentaries, and nothing of the person I knew or the musician I knew really was in any of them. And so me and a number of his close friends kind of got together and said, look, we should we'll cooperate and we'll talk like we've never talked before, if you actually if you do this. And so it's I did. It took a long time. And initially I started as a drama, and then I had trouble casting him. And
who can play Michael properly?
Yeah. And also I knew I had an attic full of outtakes, in 35mm and 16mm, and that's another thing. Like it's a prosaic answer, but scanning all that footage to film 10 years ago, 5 years ago was incredibly expensive. Now you can buy a scanner, put it in your home, and so that's why you're seeing all these old great documentaries now of old films scanned so beautifully, like Apollo 11. It's because of the cheapness of scanning technology. So being able to put all those old outtakes of the music videos through the scanner and see them in 4K was extraordinary. And so that we knew that was the right time to do all that. And weirdly enough, that process in that process I discovered 20 minutes of Michael and Kylie on holiday footage in my own attic that I didn't know was there, which was very weird. I still don't know how it got there. But when I did it,
Don't question it. Just go. That's the basis of the film.
And when I interviewed Kylie, she talked about, Michael brought a camera to our first date, and I'm going, I wonder where that footage was. And then turns out it's in my own attic, marked as a music video or something like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you talk about the people involved. Obviously, Kylie Minogue and Michael had a very famous relationship that was certainly fodder for the tabloids. How important was it to get her involved? Was she reluctant at first, or was she absolutely with it to begin with?
I think she was, she was very positive about being involved. As most people were, because they kind of knew me and trusted me, and I knew Kylie from her Michael days. Hadn't been in touch, since those days, but so I think initially it was sort of scheduled as an interview, and then halfway through the interview, and she saw the nature of it, and we sort of, bonded again 20 years later. She suddenly decided to put everything into it, and then offered me her own personal footage and stills and everything, and that was quite extraordinary. I was just expecting an interview, and all that stuff's too personal, but I think she sort of could tell that she was in safe hands and her material was in safe hands, as did a lot of the other close friends who'd never spoken before.
Yeah, because I guess that's the difficulty with any, documentary. Or you want to try and tell a news story, but some people would be wary, won't they, of digging up the past. I mean, we've seen the most recent example of a musician was the Amy Winehouse documentary, yes, of course, that was very successful and did attempt to sort of get under the skin of what celebrity was about. What do you think you've dug up in terms of what people find out about Michael? What might they not know?
Well, I think Michael's sort of, especially his sort of looks and his long hair at the peak of his career, sort of enabled the world and the media to sort of put him into a rock and roll stereotype. He's one of those loose, long-haired rock stars who sort of, you have to lock up your daughter when he's in town, and that was kind of only partly true. It's like, but not really. On one level, not true at all. And he sort of he personally got sick of that image and shaved his head and did a whole solo album with short hair and everything. And he really sort of wanted to escape that stereotype and be respected for his music more in the way. I mean, he wasn't going to follow in the Nick Cave path, but more in that way where Nick was. He may not have been playing to 70,000 people at Wembley, but he was respected for his music. And I think Nick says in some of his spoken word tours recently that they were both jealous of each other's abilities. Michael was jealous of Nick's credibility and the type of songwriting he was doing. Nick was jealous of the on-stage performance and the 70,000 people that would come, and it sort of Michael did feel trapped, and the media and the world was sort of trapping him in that, especially when the final years of the Bob and Paula shenanigans, and is that the tabloids would sort of look at him and say, oh, one of those Ozzy Osbourne type, rock stars that throw TVs out windows and seduce your daughters. And it was not like that at all. And it's one of the reasons I decided to make the film, is to try and put down the real person behind that persona that was, And I think that's another interesting part. That was part of one of Michael's vulnerabilities. He didn't actually put on a real hard suit of armour, a real persona. He didn't sort of become the Fly like Bono does, or the Thin White Duke or Ziggy Stardust like Bowie was doing. He was actually just saying, "This is me." I might look like a Jim Morrison type or whatever, but it still is me. And he sort of like, he was very vulnerable. He didn't have a really big, strong persona to sort of protect that a lot of people do.
It's interesting with the tunes. I remember walking into a coffee shop recently here in London, and the tunes are on, and everyone's, oh yeah, of course.
Yes,
there was like so many songs that InXS actually had, don't they?
I mean, I had hilarious times as I'd go to America to do the interviews, and you're talking to the taxi drivers, and they have especially if they're under a certain, they have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I'm doing InXS, Michael Hutchence, nah. And then I have to start singing the songs, So then I'm in the back of the cab singing Need You to, oh, that one, yeah, we know that one. And it was like, yeah. So that actually did shape how I made the film, because I knew there was going to be a generation who they're not in the zeitgeist or the musical consciousness like you two are, like the Rolling Stones are. They sort of didn't get a chance to continue that legacy and continue playing, so people would know about them on that level, or other generations. So I knew that I had to actually speak to the person who had no idea. So on one hand, I'm making a film about the unknown rock star. On the other hand, I'm making a film also about people, a musician and a band that you may actually know. So it's sort of like I had to tell a very engrossing story in case you didn't like the music or you didn't care or hadn't heard or anything. I had to tell the story, much like a dramatic feature film, which sort of goes back to how the whole project started.
Yeah, it's really interesting how documentaries are these days. Like you say, you have to go that extra mile, not just shove a load of footage together and you're done. There's a lot more thought.
And the talking heads, the talking heads thing, it sometimes puts you off as a person, going out on a Saturday night for a date film. It's like, oh no, it's gonna. So I deliberately didn't want the talking heads, and I deliberately didn't want to be thrusting the audience back and forth through time between present day, where there's a band member or there's Kylie, in 2018 talking. I wanted to take you back into that journey and basically just see Michael grow and develop, and so he's got the talking heads and his voice and their voice. So voices don't age nearly so much as faces, and yeah. So you can watch the film, you can be engrossed, and it's it's CinemaScope and it's Dolby Atmos sound and everything. So if you're lucky enough to see it in a big good cinema. It's a whole sort of immersive experience.
That's what I love about. I mean, at the festival's a few music-based ones, and it is that joy of seeing these things on the big screen. You know, purely for that reason, that immersive experience of a great rock and roll documentary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very rare in this day and age to get the cinema experience. I mean, I even know now it takes a really good film to get me going out and not watching it on the big screen at home and going out and to see it in the cinema. But we did design the film to be seen in the cinema. You hear the music like you've never heard it before in Atmos or in 5.1 sound, and we'd get the original multi-tracks and we'd remix them for the cinema. So you hear all that, you hear the sound design, and it's I don't think people are really expecting that when they go to a documentary. They're expecting something very, informational and educational, and so but we try to take it somewhere else, definitely.
Yeah, a great success, and lovely to chat to you about it and to hear those songs again. Thanks for bringing them back for us.
Oh, no, thank you.
Richard Lowenstein, thanks for joining us today at the London Film Festival. Have a great
pleasure.
festival.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I'm Steve Hargrave for Fred Film Radio, the festival insider. We're here at the London Film Festival. Thanks very much.